and welcome to Parks Unplugged. My name is Monica and I'm the Parks Manager for Kensington and Chelsea. This episode of our podcast will focus on the parks in North Kensington, where we have our biggest green spaces outside of Holland Park and our biggest conservation sites. This is quite a special episode for me because this is the area where I grew up. Little Wormwood Scrubs and Kensington Memorial Park were my local parks. In fact, I never knew that Kensington Memorial Park was even called that. I knew it by its local name, St Mark's Park. So it was very confusing when I first started working for the council and heard people talking about Kensington Memorial Park. I've worked in parks now for 16 years and I still find it quite surreal at times when I consider that I'm now responsible for the parks that were so significant to my childhood and helped shape who I am today. Taking you around our parks is going to be Bulent, who is a parks officer for my team, and he'll take you on a tour of his favourite green spaces in North Kensington.
Hello everyone, my name is Bulent Kazim. I am responsible for looking after the parks and open spaces in North Kensington. I live in North Kensington and I've lived here all my life. So now I count myself lucky as to be able to work here as well. I think I was thinking about how I would describe my job at the moment, and I would probably describe it using 3 words. My main responsibility is to ensure that the parks and open spaces are user-friendly, clean and safe. There's a lot more to it. But I think if I had to use any 3 words, it would be that. So today I want to talk about 4 of the biggest parks in North Kensington, which are Little Wormwood Scrubs, Kensington Memorial Park, or aka St Mark's Park, Emsley Hornham and Pleasance, next to Kensal Road, and Avondale Park. So I'll start off with Little Wormwood Scrubs. It's quite a big park in comparison to our other parks. It's only second to Holland Park in the borough. It's got an interesting history, but probably the most interesting is the fact that there used to be an old river which ran through the park and met the River Thames at Chelsea Creek. The river was called Counters Creek and it was filled in about 100 years ago. But if you go to the park today, you can see that we've got quite a lot of water in the park, and we've got quite a few willow trees, for instance, in the park, which work well in wet conditions. If you go to the 4 entrances, we have information plaques which explain a bit more about the river, but also about other aspects of the history of the park itself. So Kensington Memorial Park is my local park, so we'll talk about that one. I would say it's probably the most well-known park in North Kensington, and I think that's partly to do with the fact that we have certain features in the park, such as the water play facility, which is open during the summer, which is very popular with residents, but also the fact that we have quite a few schools around. We've got Barby Primary School, we've got Oxford Gardens Primary School, and it's quite a residential area as well, so a lot of people come there to just blow off some steam, bring the kids, go for a walk or walk their dogs. And also a lot of schools use the facility for sports day. So when I was in primary school, I went to Bevington Primary School, we'd always do our sports days in St Mark's Park. So that's always a popular activity. There's also a lot of events there in the summertime. There's private birthdays and other community events. And there's also something called the Children's Carnival, which happens every year in August. I want to talk about Emsley Hornham Pleasance, which is a park in North Kensington. It was created in 1914 and it was donated by Emsley Hornham, hence the name. The area in those days was referred to as Kensington at the beginning of the 20th century. And it was known as quite a poor neighbourhood. There was a lot of overcrowding and there was very little spaces to just relax. And Emsley Horniman was a Liberal MP between the years of 1898 to 1907. And so he had experience of getting to know the area. And he said something interesting. He said, "I have often been struck that in this poor neighbourhood there is hardly a tree or a shrub, and no place within a mile or more where children can play except the streets, nor anywhere for mothers and old people to rest." So Emsley was a philanthropist, as was his father, and his grandfather was the founder of the Horniman tea brand, which at the time was the biggest tea empire in the world. So Emsley decided to donate this park to the local council on the condition that it would be used as a public recreation ground. So in the park there is a very unique formal garden called the Voicey Garden. This was designed by a friend of Emsley Horniman called C.F.A. Voicey. And Voicey was famous for his Gothic principles of design. Lastly, but not least, is Avondale Park. Strangely, having lived in North Kensington all my life, I never knew about Avondale Park until I started working for the council. I think it's very much a local park for those people who live around it. It's situated in quite an interesting area, which is right next to Notting Hill, Holland Park, but also the Lancaster West Estate and the Henry Dickens Court Estate. So it brings about all communities from all sides. It's got quite a lot of features in the park. It's got a newly refurbished playground. It's got an outdoor gym, which didn't exist a few years ago. We've got a lot of interesting planting, but we also have a wildlife area which we're improving at the moment, which is being used for community workshops. And we've got 4 really interesting wood carvings within the woodlands, so it's definitely worth a visit. Another interesting thing about Avondale is that it's got an underground air raid shelter. We've got a history board on site that tells you a little bit about it. Unfortunately, it's not accessible, but if you're next in the park, it's worth having a read.
And now I'll pass you over to Christian Harris, Parks Project Manager, who's working on a particularly interesting project at Kensington Memorial Park.
Hi, I'm Christian. I'm Parks Project Manager at Kensington and Chelsea. So joining you today from Kensington Memorial Park, and the sun's shining. It's a beautiful day. Just a little bit about me. So my background is farming and horticulture. So grew up in Herefordshire near Wales. I'm really passionate about plants and the environment and providing places for people to enjoy. I studied horticulture in Essex, and I spent 25 years working in parks and gardens for different councils across both Surrey and Sussex. And then after setting up my own business as a farm shop and cafe, I decided to go back into local government because I missed it. Really enjoy the camaraderie and dealing with some great projects. So I'm here, and my job basically it's really varied. So one day I might be dealing with putting in a new children's playground. The next day it could be flood lighting for tennis courts. and another day could be a planting plan to make the parks look brilliant. My experience of Kensington Chelsea at the moment, so I only started in April, but it's a great place to work. It's got a really dedicated team, and I've got some really talented colleagues, and I'm lucky enough to actually be based in one of the parks as well. So what some of the main projects I'm dealing with are at this park, Kensington Memorial Park. It was opened to the public in 1926, and it was opened to honour those who died in the First World War. Some people call it St Mark's Park, so I spoke to quite a few people and they say, oh, I've never heard of a Kensington Memorial Park, it's actually St Mark's Park. So it seems to have two names. By the 1950s, the park already had tennis courts, a playground, a paddling pool and its formal gardens. And then historic maps from the 1970s show that it also had the cafe in its current location. But some of the park is looking a bit tired. So we got some funding to make some improvements. So this year we've already completely revamped the children's play area. So it's a massive play area. It's got junior facilities and also older children's facilities. So we put in, it's a lot of timber equipment. And you might think timber equipment, is that sustainable? But actually that's the best thing because timber can be regrown. So that timber actually came from Germany. And it's part of a sustainable forest where any timber that's cut down is replaced with new trees. If you put in equipment with, say, plastic or with metal, that has to be processed, and it's not a renewable source as much as timber is. So the equipment we put in, we got sand play, lots of different types of swings, aerial runways, and a pirate ship. And so far we've had really great feedback. We did a lot of consultation before we put in the new children's playground. So we worked a lot with St Quintin's Centre for children with disabilities. And we also worked with the local councillors and local people and got their feedback on the types of equipment they'd like to see there. One of the really big projects we've got happening starting later this year, so we're going to replace a lot of the buildings. So also we've done a lot of consultation and we set up a steering group with local people to help us to design the new facilities. One of the biggest things we're doing is replacing the old cafe. It's a really old building, so we're going to make that into a larger building, and that's also going to incorporate some new public toilets. Public toilets are really important in parks because if they're dirty and people don't want to use them, that means people aren't going to be attracted to the area. But these are going to be state of the art. They're also going to have a really good baby change facilities and a change in places room for people with disabilities as well. So really excited about bringing that building. And it's also going to be state of the art in terms of environment. So it's going to have solar panels on the roof. It's going to have an air source heat pump, underfloor heating, which is more energy efficient. And on the side of it is going to be a water garden. So the water coming off the roof will filter into the water garden, which is far more sustainable and creates a garden for wildlife as well. And then in front of the cafe, we're going to have pergolas, which are going to be covered so that people have cover from the rain and the sun, and also some landscaping around there as well. And then the changing rooms, so the sports changing rooms, so they're going to be fully refurbished, both inside and out. And also they're going to have a green roof. So it's a living green roof that's going to have wildflowers to attract all sorts of wildlife on top of the roof as well.
That's all for this episode. If you're enjoying the podcast, then feel free to leave a review and help more people find us. Also, if you have any questions about parks, plants, trees or gardening, then please get in touch at parks@rbkc.gov.uk and we will try to answer your questions in future episodes. Join us next time when we will visit the parks in Chelsea and South Kensington, where we have a real mix of old and new green spaces and hear about some of the work we're doing to improve them.